Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Trails Committee meeting, February 20th. I am calling the meeting to order at 7:30. When I call your name, please let me know you're here. Will Warren,
Here.
Satyendra Sharma,
Here.
Tom McCoolier,
Here.
Kat McKee here. Great. So thank you. First up, oops, I don't have the agenda up actually. Is going to be reviewing of the minutes. Does everyone have you had an opportunity to review the minutes, or do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, great. So if there are no questions and everyone is comfortable with the minutes as presented, can someone please make a motion to approve the January 30th, 2024 minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, let's do roll call. Will Warren,
Aye.
Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
and Kat McKee. Great, thank you all. Thank you, Satya, for drafting notes. Okay, next up is Peninsula Trail. Actually, I'm going to reverse these. I'm going to do number 4 first, if you're comfortable with that. So it's the Peninsula Trail Phase 2 next steps application, CPA application, CE core, and the engineering vendor updates and ARPA updates. So a lot has happened since our last meeting. We met on the 30th. And I met with the Community Preservation Committee on the 31st. I resubmitted the application. And I think the biggest thing that came out of that is that Ben, the chair, recommended a 15% contingency, as some of his experience has been these types of construction projects. It's a better percentage. I had reduced it to 5 just to keep the numbers on the lower end, and he recommended increasing that. So I have done that with the application. So what I want to do is just bring this up so that we can run through it very quickly, or as long as we need to. Is that the one? No, hold on. Okay, and it would be this one. Okay, so let me share screens. Okay, let me know that you see an application up. It says Will on the front of it. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so our new funding request is 211,232. So that let's go through. So the project overview, I'll send this to you after the meeting. Not much of this has changed. What I did do, they did identify that there was it was unclear about the project management aspect of this. And that's something that we understand as a committee we were going to bid for, but it wasn't very clear in the application. So I made that adjustment by adding in multiple locations where it was necessary. The project costs include hiring a general contractor who will oversee and manage the purchase of the bridge and boardwalk and the build out, so that it was clear, because I think that was a really good flag on their end, because we don't want to get to town meeting and have that be brought up as an issue. Something that capital planning, when we went through the ARPA funding request, had called out as well. So these project goals and the who will benefit, all of this information, I'm just kind of scrolling through quickly. I can stop if you want me to, but this is all the same information as we had originally presented. And then down here, so this is the budget. So what I have here is, I did speak with the bridge and boardwalk vendor and got an updated footbridge cost. The boardwalk estimator was out, so he did kind of he sent an email and qualified and increased some prices based on the original quote. And I have since met with them again on the boardwalk to talk about costs and such. And there will be some decision points about that are related to having railings on both sides, one or both sides, that's going to affect the cost and things like that. So they are, they were supposed to send it to me this, yesterday, Monday. But I will follow up again. I should get it, in the next day or so. And because these numbers needed to be finalized last week before it was presented to, or the week it was presented to the select board, I think it's it was February 6th, so these numbers needed to be updated. Even if the boardwalk kit comes in a little bit higher, we can't change these numbers, so we're just gonna need to work with that in whatever way it is. And hopefully, remember this, it was used as a benchmark so that when we eventually we'll go to bid and the numbers could change if the contractor gets a different quote, for example. So we've done our due diligence as best we could for this. Any questions on the budget? Okay. So that was I did revise the schedule, also CPC. So they put an end date of December 2026 to give us plenty of runway to spend the funding if it gets approved. Although we have other timelines that, meaning the ARPA funds have to be encumbered by the end of this year. So we're not looking at doing anything in 2026, but for this funding application, they've structured it as such, so I extended the deadline to represent 2026. But ideally, we get everything done in this year. And again, down here, I put in that we would be hiring a contractor as a project manager, so it was clear to them. So I don't know if you guys have been following any of the select board meetings, but I'll give you a little heads up. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because I tend to forget and the screen just stays that way. So on February 6th, CPC presented the articles to the select board. That was Ben Smith, and the select board was very interested in our project, the Peninsula Trail, where we were, what the status was. They are looking to reallocate the ARPA funds, of course, and so they were asking Ben lots of questions related to that part of the project, which he wasn't there to answer. And so he did his best in answering, and he did a great job. But it was very clear after that meeting that the select board, number one, needed an update, and number two, there was a lot of confusion and misinformation around the project, and what we have done and what hasn't been done, where the project's located, phase 1 and phase 2. So during that meeting, Mark Purple reached out to me to confirm that what was his, let me just get this right so I don't, okay, because they were concerned because we had not spent or requested any expenditures for the ARPA money. So let's see, who wrote? Let's see. Yes, on 2/6. So the select board continues to finalize the fiscal year budget. And they're considering reallocating the ARPA funding for various projects. He's like, I know you've been working hard to try to bring the Peninsula Trail to fruition, but the board's considering applying the unused ARPA funds to the fiscal year 2025 budget to help defray tax increase. Okay, so please provide an update of the status of the project as well as your projected timeline so the board has the ability to make informed decisions. Also, while the allocation of ARPA funds was made by the select board, any proposed expenditure under the allocations needs to be approved by the select board before they are incurred. Meaning that even though we would like to engage Beals and Thomas, we have to go before the select board and ask to spend the money, even though it's been allocated for that project. So it's like a second layer of approvals that we need. It was a good reminder because I wasn't quite thinking about it like that because I thought we had approved. So that was on Tuesday, the 6th. So I reached out and said, can we meet? When can we meet? Can we meet on Friday morning to discuss the project? Tim Davis joined me and met with Mark, and I went through the project outline, explained to him where we were with engineering services that Satya Andhra had gotten the application, and we were just waiting for the structural engineering piece. And we waited longer because we wanted to make sure we did our due diligence in trying to get as much pro bono for the project, because we wanted to offset the cost that we were incurring and that we wouldn't be spending all the money if we didn't have to based on the pro bono. So that was fine. And so I asked if we could be on the agenda for the next week, and he said that the select board was already scheduled to talk about the ARPA funding. And so that, so I didn't get a confirmation that would be an agenda item, but I knew the ARPA funding would be there. It would be a topic. So I attended the next meeting, which was on 2/13. And it was a long meeting, and but we basically gave the board an update, answered some questions. I gave a map so that people would know where we were. And the question was, so the select board suggested, can you have CPC fund all of it, the rest of it, like your ARPA, can they cover the ARPA funding and this application you currently have in hand? And so we are not qualified to speak on behalf of CPC. So we had a representative, Kristen Lavalde, who is the vice chair of the committee, and she was online. So I told the select board that we can't answer that question, but that honestly, it would be problematic at this late stage to update our CPA application because it's already gone through approvals. I don't even know if CPC is meeting again to even, or if they would even agree to a higher cost. So it wasn't something we could make a decision on, but in the way that this is flowing, we would have to wait if that did fly, if CPC said yes and the board requested that to happen, and it means we'd have to put everything on hold for the engineering services until July 1st, when the funding for, if the town even voted it forward, to even spend to start spending the money, which would put the whole thing on hold, back by several months, which would jeopardize us getting a signed agreement by December 24. And actually, Carla wants the agreement. She wants money encumbered by June 30th so that they know the money is going to be encumbered. And if it's not, they have enough time as the select board to reallocate that money so they don't lose it. So I understand the time pressures, and I think I'm just trying to convey that to the committee. So Kristen Lavalde from CPC was on the line, and she just shared that there's not enough time for CPC to re-engage or to meet and figure all of that out within the timeline that we have left. And that she can't speak on behalf of the committee, but she's not sure that they would agree to an increase like this. And so it was a tricky navigating, that conversation, but it was done well by Kristen, just sharing the facts of the matter. And so then I'm trying to think of the sequence of things. So so the board was definitely trying to work with us and trying to find a way to continue to fund the project. And what ended up happening was there's some other funding became available for sidewalks that's not going to be used in the same way this year. It's going to be used next year, not the same funding, but there was too much time pressure for them to get that project executed. So some of the funding is coming back into ARPA so they can reallocate that funding to our bucket. So that was positive. And so the board voted to keep the money, the ARPA money allocated to this project. And it was a vote of 4-1. The one person who didn't vote for this funding or to keep the funding as is was Al Hamilton, and his point was that he prefers sidewalks over trails and that more people will use sidewalks than trails. So but it really wasn't, as I understood it, the discussion wasn't really, we're just choosing between sidewalks and trails. It was the sidewalk project, part of it can't get done in the time frame, so the money's coming back, not because of trails. So it's not sidewalks or trails, it's sidewalks and trails. It's just sidewalks next year and trails this year. So it really isn't a either or. So I just want that narrative to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, whoever will listen to this after, if I'm not understanding that properly, but that was my understanding about it. But I did make a case that, we have a lot of community support for this project. And in total, last year, we're working really hard. We met 20 times last year. And we have over 37 letters of support from all the applications from the grant, from CPA, things like that. And, our signatures, they're over 1,600. So it's not like there aren't people in support of the project. And so while we completely understand and respect the board's position and their challenge to reduce the tax burden, we do hope that they could continue to support us. So it was a positive vote for that. So I'll stop and just see if you have any questions before I continue.
The money from the sidewalks, will that totally replace the money that they were otherwise going to give us?
Say that one more time.
They're going to take away some money they were going to give us, but there's the sidewalk money. Does that totally replace the money that they were going to give us?
So they just were able to keep the money in the bucket that it is for trails.
Do they have leftover money from the sidewalks?
Yeah, so I think what I didn't follow the sidewalk conversation completely, but some of the money had to be given back because DPW could not execute the project in the timeline that was necessary to spend the money this year. So they just gave it back and said, here, we've got a bigger project next year for sidewalks.
Okay.
So it's getting done. It's just in a different timeline,
But the question is, the sidewalk money, is that more money than we were going to get, or the same amount of money that
Oh
we
yeah,
were gonna
ours
get?
is the same. We're not getting any more. Yep.
Okay.
They're just keeping, they just needed to find another way to make it happen. So that was a little stressful just because we've done a lot of work, and there was a lot riding on that conversation, and I was a little nervous going into it whether it would work in our favor or not. And so it did. Thank you, select board. So I then followed up with Mark Purple and asked him, okay, so now we're ready. And I explained to the select board, we have an engagement letter from Beals and Thomas. We're ready to have it signed once you approve it, So now that is our next step. I reached out to Mark and said, okay, so does that meeting last week, does that serve as the approval to spend the money for engineering services, or do we have to go back? So we have to go back to the select board next week and ask for approval of the Beals and Thomas expenditure out of the ARPA funds. And so I don't have full confirmation. I've made the request. Let me just see.
The Beals thing that you sent out, right? That letter.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in saying that it does not seem to include cost for the pro bono work that we're trying to get?
Yeah, so let's talk about that next, because we want to detail that. He included an optional for geotechnical. Okay, he included structural engineering under the design and permitting section 1.2. The optional services. So what I asked Beals and Thomas to do is, can you please provide an optional line item for the geotechnical in case the pro bono services don't come through, right? We know that structural, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We now know, because I met with community engineering last Tuesday, that we're not getting the structural engineer. They just couldn't find a partner to provide the pro bono services for structural, but we will get that. She reconfirmed that Terracon is good for geotechnical. So the next steps for them is to send to us. We're going to contract directly with Terracon, but there may be some documentation and forms through Community Engineering Corps that we need to work through. So she's going to be getting that information to me as soon as possible. And we'll go from there. And I did speak with Beals and Thomas. They know about Terracon and they're fine working with them. So I think I had mentioned that during the last meeting. So thank you for bringing that up. But that's why it's listed under there as optional. But the structural is definitely included in there.
But this work that's optional under Beals, that's definitely going to be done by Terracon?
Well, definite is a great word. I'd love to say yes, but is life definite? We're not really sure about anything until it happens. So the idea and the way we have structured it is that Terracon will do the geotechnical services under the supervision and collaboration with Beals and Thomas. If for some reason that doesn't work, Beals and Thomas will do that.
How much would the Beals and Thomas optional line cost
Sorry,
then?
Bills and Thomas will contract for that because they actually have to subcontract that anyway. It's 14,000 is the line item for geotechnical.
Okay, thank you.
And geotechnical, it's an estimate, right? So when you get in there, they've described this in clear that when you get in there, you start getting borings. You never really know what you're going to uncover. So could be a little bit more. Never know if it's going to be less. Yeah. So that's community engineering course. So we have to now write a letter, which I'll do tonight, to the select board requesting to expend the funds for Beals and Thomas Engineering Services. Okay, by Thursday, good. So I could use that extra day. All right, so next, so I've been in touch with Beals to let them know that we're going through the process. They've worked with municipalities before, so they understand the timeline. So I have received their certificate of insurance. I've got the proposal and it's been sent to the town council. Jay, I'm going to go to open office hours, legal hours tomorrow, talk about that with Jay, see if there are any red flags, confirm the certificate of insurance. The only trick with the certificate of insurance is that I think we require 3 million aggregate for general liability, and they have 2 million aggregate, but they also have an umbrella policy of 5 million. So I think it's going to be fine. So I just need to confirm that. But so once the select board next Tuesday say they vote yes, then we're ready to, the Mark Purple needs to sign the letter of confirmed he's going to be the signatory, sign the letter and let Beals get going on their services. What we'll do this week is reach out to Framingham Conservation, Southborough Conservation, and MWA, and let them know everything's getting started again. And let them know that, we'll be starting the permitting process. So we'll go full steam ahead, hopefully. And if all goes well, this is kind of rough estimates. So if I'm wrong, just understand that we're kind of spitballing a timeline. So we're February 20th. Say, you got to go through a few rounds of conservation commissions to get the permitting in place. So, that's going to be in March. And so it might be by April, we would have gone through the permitting, get everything in place, and then get started on the bid. And, April, by then we'll know, actually, that's a good point. By then we'll know if CPC, if the warrant article was voted forward. And that means we probably won't have to write the bid to be contingent upon CPA funding. Now, if things move quickly and we do have a bid before the town meeting, that's how it would work out, where we would say contingent upon CPA funding. And we go to bid beforehand. Otherwise, we will wait. And yeah. And so if we don't get CPA funding, what we will have at the end of this is we'll have the engineering plans in place for this bridge and boardwalk. And we will have to reassess what we have for funding left, talk to the parties to be, see what we can do, if anything at all. We won't be able to do the bridge and boardwalk. We will be able to do signage and finish all of that. And then we'll have to go to a plan B, which will be reallocate ARPA money back if we can't use it, back to them, and we'll know by June, well in advance of June. And we'll have to go after additional funding for that, and that may be in the form of a Mass Trails grant. But I would like to try to avoid that at all costs. The other thing we could do is, if we do have to do a Mass Trails grant, we may have funding that we could allocate to have a firm do the Mass Trails grant for us instead of us doing it, because that would be helpful, I think, in this next, because it's getting more and more competitive, the Mass Trails grant. So it might be good to have some help. And yeah. Any questions?
One question would be the Tarragon work. Is that on the critical path for Beals?
Is that on a critical path for Beals? What is that?
So in
I
other
think
words,
it's
if
part of
that
our-
work doesn't happen, does Beals have to wait for it?
Yes. Beals would have to contract it out to another contractor.
Okay, so
They were going to
what's
sub the structural engineering and geotechnical engineering anyway. So
So-
if Terracon doesn't come through, they'll have to find another sub to do that. Yes.
what would be the time frame for them having to find someone else?
Well,
When would they actually do that?
Yeah, they have connections. I'm not sure how long it would take them to put somebody. It would all be dependent upon schedules and work plans and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not sure when they would want to do that. In other words, they're not going to do it this month, they're not going to do it next month, but there's some month where they'll say, we've got to go and subcontract this.
Well, it's only if the coordination with Terracon, if that for some reason falls through. But we'll know early on, because once we engage Beals and Thomas, they're gonna want to engage Terracon to figure out timelines with each other and work out a work plan and a schedule. Does that answer? Or feel free to ask again. And
Well, it just, what it seems from your answer is that they would almost immediately, if Terracon can't give them an answer, they would almost immediately, switch to the contracting it out.
yeah, they would have to change directions pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, if there are no questions, we can go through the application. So we did a step-by-step review of this the first time. So a lot of it should be the same. I did speak with Beals and just make sure that they added in some, buffer for times that they might expect maybe the conservation commissions have a little more questions. It takes a few extra hours, those types of, and they've worked on these types of projects before, so certainly try to build in some consulting time to cover unknowns, but knowns that might happen, so that we would have an adequate budget. And so, does anyone have any questions? They will also help develop the bid packet, and they will provide some bidding assistance, which is really good. Review the submittals of the bid, right? And so, yeah, I thought it was very similar and good to the as the first one. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or issues. Okay, and I'll be reviewing this with Tim Davis and the general counsel as well. So I think that's that. I'm excited to see this kind of move forward and get some forward momentum in this way. Okay, let's see what is next. So I swapped two of the items. So we want to talk about the phase one. So I'm supposed to work with Sati. Obviously, it's been a little busy these past few weeks because there's a few emergencies, a few fires that popped up. So I haven't been able to reach out to you, Sati. Now that we have a couple things moving, I'll connect with you and see if you have any time or, in the next few weeks to talk. We were thinking about, I don't know if you were in this meeting, Tom, but using ChatGPT or some AI generative tool to help with signage, so that we can talk about, any movement on that level, and get some signage, because we're going to need to, I'm going to have a trails report due on March 15th. And that means I'm circling back to anyone who has not submitted their timesheets.
That would be me.
I think there might be one more person.
Well, the timesheet that you sent out, that looked fine to me. I mean, is that adequate?
That might be old time.
The dates were for this year.
I didn't put anything in it for this year. I would have resent an old email that I sent last year.
Okay, well then,
and what it might
sorry.
have is it might have your old time that you want to add on to it. I forget what I actually sent.
Okay, all right. I'll take a look at it then, and
yeah.
All right.
Because I'm going to need that information. And let me just emphasize why it's important is that we had a certain match, and part of our match is based on hours that we put into the project. So we want to make sure our match matches the match. How many times can you say match in one sentence? So that's why every hour counts towards the match. I also need to reach out to DPW and get their hours and payroll records and things like that. It's a little bit of a complicated process when it's not volunteers, because you have to have payroll documentation for that stuff. So we'll work through that. But the signage is going to be important to kind of
yeah, just a word on the signage. I did chat GPT.
Yeah.
It won't give you any shapes or visuals, but
Oh,
tells
that's
it
fine.
suggests certain things, and like I can read it out. Trail difficulty level, trail directional arrows, trail distance markers, trail rules and regulations, wildlife awareness signs, terrain information, emergency information, water source locations, rest area signs, scenic viewpoints,
Oh,
trailhead
is that
signs.
giving you ideas for types of signage?
Yeah, that's what it
Okay.
is saying.
Yeah, so we're gonna want to prompt that baby to understand, like, I would like to see, and it might be limited, right? Depending on what resources it has, but I'd like to see if we prompted it to generate interpretive signage based on Southborough, Massachusetts history, including the Fayetteville Dam construction, or what is it called? The Sudbury Valley, Sudbury Dam construction. So I think it's the way we prompt it will help generate different topical ideas. I should probably reach out to Andy Leahy from DCR and see if we could chat about ideas because based on his history walk and such, and see if that can help us, Sati, because we could type in some keywords and see if it will
Yeah, it
generate.
will still not show you any visuals. It will
Yeah,
still tell
that's
you.
okay, because I think there's another program. What's the other program called? I forget the name of it right now, but it's focused on pictures. There's a specific AI tool for pictures.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
My boss uses it, so I'll get that information. But yeah, so and the other thing it would be good for is not just the history, but like what kind of ecology, wetlands, environmental things do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on invasive management? Do we want to focus on highlighting some of the native species in the area, that kind of thing? Because we have like 4 or 5 different options for signs to be placed places, so we could kind of rotate between historical and environmental and those types of things. But we should go ahead and try to generate some text so that we can re-engage the vendor who had been so wonderful at following up with us. And that would help us close out that project, which needs to be closed out by the end of the year. But obviously there's a lot going on, so we want to make sure we get it ahead of time. DCR work plan. So Tom, last time we talked, and I don't think I sent you an email with the draft text, but I can do that next after this meeting. Is basically it's just going to be like a maintenance schedule, and then we need to customize that, and really what we're looking for, and you don't have to do what you don't know is fine as far as locations and stuff, but what we want to do is kind of like a work plan based on maintenance of what we know, right? We basically do maintenance between spring and fall, and the types of maintenance, you're familiar with what we do. So I think what we want to do is kind of just outline the key concepts of what maintenance means. We'll have fallen trees from time to time. We'll have volunteers manage some of that. On occasion, we'll have to contract that out depending on the size of the tree, those types of things. So that would be, and I think, and we'll need to include, like, what we'll do is together in a work plan, like a next meeting or next couple meetings, we'll get that and kind of organize it and make sure that the locations of the trails are noted in the front, top, and then these are the types of activities that could happen on any of these trails, right? So keeping it high level, but specific enough. And then we can have a section for special projects, and that's where the Peninsula Trail would fall under. So that might be something that we could do there. Okay, great. Okay, so that's phased. That's under number 5, work plan. So anything related to maintenance, Butters website, we should be starting to think about trail maintenance. So it's February, so it's a little early, but I should share, because we still have a trail to build out, a natural surface trail around where the Peninsula Trails go, the boardwalk and the boardwalk and the bridge. We have to build that out. So I reached out to AMC, Bay Circuit Trail, volunteer group, and see if they would have any spring projects available, that they would send some volunteers to help us build that trail. This year I'm going to be a little challenged to do any trail maintenance or building out trails until my knee heals, which could be months, many months, not quite sure yet. So it's going to just limit my ability to do everything I used to do. And so I'm going to need we're gonna need to really coordinate volunteers and figure out how to, execute and make sure we have what we need.
Is this trail build out going to be a pick and shovel kind of work?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds
Yeah,
good with me.
and we really want to focus on, and I know it's not completely accessible, but I really want to focus on the accessibility of this natural surface trail as much as possible. We have a slope. Can we get that slope within range? Can we put rest stops so that that slope, even if it's a little bit above range, would qualify? I really want to make sure we're focused with that in mind, because even though we don't have some of the trail round where we're putting this boardwalk and bridge are not fully accessible, if we can do our best to make it as accessible as possible, there could be other projects in the future that would finish this up for us, right? Like we can go in there with an excavator and make it more accessible, or we can, build, like, literally put a sidewalk in that goes up to the trail if MWA permission down the line, that type of stuff. So I want to try to do our best to make sure that we're able to put in as much of a trail with mobility issues in mind as possible, as long as it's reasonable to do. And I just don't want to lay groundwork that's not fully supporting our ultimate vision for the trail. Does that make sense?
So this would be the trail near the bridge on Route 30.
Yeah, right before the boardwalk. So that's going to be the start of the natural surface trail, because they're
Right.
coming in from the right. If you remember, coming in from the like nice little mowed grass area into the
Right.
woods, then you have the boardwalk, and then you have more natural surface trail, and then you have the bridge.
And looking at that hill, we'll probably need to cut some trees down.
Yeah, that was expected. So we'll try to minimize the number of trees that we have to cut down. But yeah, and then if we are cutting down trees, what can we do? And we had some budget associated with additional plantings to help offset that.
Do we need any special permission for the tree cutting, or is that done by DPW or what?
It's done by us. They're not large trees. Many of them are, you can put your hand around them. We would need to obviously work with, it needs to be listed in our NOI that we're a work order of conditions that we're putting in place, because this is in the wetlands area. And so Framingham, Southborough Conservation Committees would both be involved, as well as MWA.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okey doke. Any other questions or thoughts? No. Okay.
Just one question. This trail work, when do you think it'll be going off? Is that like in May, June kind of a time frame?
Yeah, the trail work. So if I had a hunch, I think it would be beneficial to this project if we could get that trail built ASAP. So I think it would help the people that need to get in there to have an access point. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the next step is I haven't heard from, I don't know if I have the right contact. So that's the thing. I want to not forget, I want to keep barking up that door, because we were successful before at getting them to volunteer. But I think our next step is we can reach out to our Boy Scouts here in town, Troop 1 and Troop 92, to see if anyone, I don't think they have an Eagle Scout project available, but if anyone wants to a community service day or 4 days, I don't think it would be a lot of work. The tree cutting and some of the planning is going to be some work. But I was surprised with a larger group of people, you can really move a trail fast. I was always really surprised by that. So if they could do a community service day or two, maybe we could get them to do a lot of specific work, like help us, we flag some trees, take those down, that kind of thing. And then, we can do some of the work too. And then if that doesn't pan out, we could also reach out to other community, like Marlborough and Framingham, have Boy Scout troops or Scout troops that we could reach out to and see if they could do community days. So we string a few community days together, we get a plan. So that's kind of that. And we could also put a call out to volunteers in town, see if we had the thing about, we just need to, it's kind of, yeah, we just need to figure out who would be best suited for that. Sound good?
Mhm.
Great, so let's talk next meeting. All right, so next week, the select board will meet on the 27th. So basically Beals will get started. And I don't know that there'll be any decision points right away, but do we want to look at,
So the 27th is go or no go deals with the select board, right?
which I can't imagine, I'll just be honest, like if they voted yes to keep the money in the bucket 4-1, unless something significantly changed, I'm not sure why the vote would be anything less
I-
than that.
I agree.
So I don't want to, you don't count the birds until they're in your hand, but
No, 2 birds in the hand is worth more. 2 birds.
no, one bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. Okay. So what about the week of March 12th?
I am away that week.
Oh, okay. So what about the week of the 19th, on the 19th?
That's fine. The 19th is good by me.
How about you, Will and Sati?
Looks good so far.
You said yes? Did you say okay, yes?
I said looks good so far. I mean, I don't know
Okay,
until
good.
19th what will happen, but yeah, looks okay to me.
Okay. And Will, how do you look?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so let's do that. That's going to be on the 19th at 7:30. And if there's nothing else, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Well, wait, I'm updating my calendar. What date did we say?
The 19th at 7:30.
So March 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's in.
Great. Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Great. All in favor, Will Warren,
aye.
Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Tom McCoolier.
Yes. So
Catherine.
Catherine, just send me that MOA work plan.
Oh yeah, the work plan. Got it. Thank you all. We're adjourning at 8:13.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.